Welcome to the Bowel Chronicles, where we dive deep into the world of bowel health. I'm your host, Nikki Kilpatrick, and on this podcast we have raw and candid conversations with individuals facing various bowel conditions and illnesses. Through personal stories and shared experiences, we illuminate resilience and courage in the face of adversity. Be reminded that each story is personal and unique. These conversations are not to be taken as medical advice or to replace guidance from a doctor or healthcare provider. Our aim is to inspire and empower through these amazing stories, amplifying voices often unheard. So join us as we embark on this journey together. Sit back, listen, and be inspired. Enjoy the episode. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Bowel Chronicles. I'm your host, Nikki Kilpatrick, and today we're joined by the lovely Rachel Allen, also known as a Gutsy mum on social media. Rachel, it's great to have you here with us today to share some of your story, so thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Rachel, your story, I think I've probably shared one or two stories maybe before on the podcast about Hirschsprung's disease. Your journey is one of Hirschsprung's disease, and in fact, you're also the mum of two young boys also living with Hirschsprung's disease. So I think if we kick off, if we go right back to kind of when you first realised that you had Hirschsprung's disease, or when you were maybe different to everyone else growing up because you had a stoma from practically you were born. So let's chat a little bit about what Hirschsprung's disease is and how that kind of came about in your life.
Okie doke. So, it's quite different to IBD and things like that, which is the more common reasons for having a stoma. So I do kind of feel like a bit of imposter syndrome sometimes when I'm in these environments, because I'm like, oh, it's not the same reason as most. But it is a bowel disease. It's a chronic disease. You're born with it. It happens 6 weeks after conception in the womb, where the ganglion cells that line your intestine to help move your waste along, they don't develop properly. So when they're absent, you simply can't remove your waste. So when the baby is born, they'll have symptoms like a distended tummy. They won't be able to keep feed down. They'll vomit and just become incredibly poorly very quickly. There are different variations of the disease. So you can have short segment where it's only in a small part of your bowels, and you can have long segment, and then you can have total where it's all the way through. So there are lots of different versions.
Okay.
So for me and my boys, we've got long segment. So in the rectum, all our colon and part of our small intestine. So as you can imagine, for a baby being born with all that amount of intestine not functioning, it's not good. It requires surgery quite soon in life, within a week or 10 days. And then you can't go home with that baby until the stoma is functioning and the doctors are happy that everything else is okay. So a rectal biopsy would be used to diagnose the disease, and that would detect the absence of the ganglion cells. And then, it depends how severe it is. Some babies can go home on bowel washouts and they can cope with that. And some babies can't. So in my case and the boys, we couldn't have, there was no way. So we all had stomas as a result.
When you were born. So you're 35 now, and you've been living practically your entire life with a stoma, is that right?
So when a baby's born and is given a stoma, it's not something that they want the baby to keep unless there's a very good reason for that. It's not supposed to be an end goal. It's supposed to be something to help, and then hopefully they can do something to help them not have it anymore. So the treatment has moved on a lot now. So if you can imagine 35 years ago, there would have been a very different way of handling it than in 2016 when I had my eldest, from when he had it, and then to my baby that I had in March. So each of us have had different types of surgery, but ultimately it's all ended in a stoma. I had mine reversed at 2.5. My 8-year-old, they attempted to reverse it at 18 months, and then the baby, they want it reversed well before a year old. So things, obviously technology changes and the way surgeons practice changes, but for me, it wasn't the right call. I had no end of poorliness in my childhood. enterocolitis is very common, and the main risk of having Hirschsprung's disease, having infections all the time. And I'd miss about 1 week every half term in school from being poorly with diarrhea and vomiting and God knows what.
Okay.
And then I had peaks and troughs where I'd feel well for a bit, then I wouldn't. And I'd be given stuff like, oh, maybe you're lactose intolerant, come off milk, come off lactose. Oh, maybe you need to be gluten-free, try that. And
Mhm.
ultimately, the only thing that made me better was at the age of 30 when enough was enough and I asked for a stoma. And it was more of me saying, you know what, I can't do this anymore. Um, and I had to go for a private consultant appointment because the NHS wouldn't touch me because I had too many surgeries as a child. And they said, no, you're too much of a risk. Um, and I paid £250. I went to a local Bupa consultant that I'd researched in my local hospital. And I said, look, I can't see any way out of this now. I haven't got a good quality of life. I was having rectal pain. It just felt like someone was stabbing me in the backside. It was just, I couldn't run around after my eldest. He was about 4 or 5 then.
Mhm.
And I just couldn't be a mum. It was all very sad. And I just went to this surgeon. I basically sat in front of him and begged him and said, please, can I just have a soma? I don't know. I knew I couldn't pay for it privately, but
Mhm.
I just needed someone to maybe tell me that I wasn't going insane and that there wasn't anything else anyone could do. Because I think when you've got a chronic illness and you're poorly so much all the time, and it is just your everyday life and it is your normal. It doesn't mean it's great. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean because you cope with it and on the outside you look like you're living, we all know we're not. And deep down, it's almost like like a swan on the top is all elegant and then underneath they're just and
Yeah.
that's what it constantly felt like all the time. But luckily this guy was like yeah, his name's Jared, and I gave him a hug. And every time I see him, I hug him because that bloke saved my life. And he was like, "Yeah, you should have a stoma, and I'll put you on my NHS list as long as you don't mind waiting a little bit." And I was like, "Absolutely!" And I cried, and I went home, and I thought, "Right, this is it. This is gonna sort me out." And if it weren't for that guy, I don't know where I'd be now. I definitely wouldn't have had another child, that's for sure. Yeah, it's I know for a lot of people a stoma is scary and they don't want it and it's kind of the worst thing in the world, it feels like. But for me, I begged for one
Mhm.
and I couldn't see how I could carry on without one.
And
So that's why I champion them really.
was that always in your head, in your mindset, growing up, because it had been reversed a few times or whatever, you know, did you ultimately know that that was going to give you a quality of life, a better quality of life?
Not really. I mean, I was born in 1989, and back then there was no social media.
Yeah.
My mum and dad wouldn't have known anyone or spoke to anyone with a child with a stoma. They would have had no one to talk to about it. It would have been very isolating.
Mhm.
And as a result, they didn't really talk to me about it very much. I mean, for them, well, now I know as myself, having had two boys with them, it's devastating. It's not something that's
Yeah.
nice and fun to talk about. You don't get to have your baby and go out of the hospital a couple of days after and have the first cuddles and the visitors to your house and have those days in bed and all this wide, that you see in the movies. That's not for you. That's not meant for you. And
Mhm.
with my eldest, I didn't leave hospital for 6 weeks. With my youngest, we managed 4 weeks until we got home, which I thought was amazing.
Mhm.
And me and my partner we'd sit there every day and we'd watch people going out with their babies in the car seats and taking the photos and they looked knackered and hanging but they were happy because they were taking their baby home. And I think for me especially because the kids have different dads, I just thought I can't believe this has happened again. Like I can't believe this is what was meant for me. Like I'm not religious.
Mhm.
I well, but I always think, oh God, I think for a lot of us, always trying to find a reason, like, why did this have to happen? Like, trying to find some way of, I suppose, when you try and accept what's happened, you try and look for a reason, don't you? So that you can maybe try and make some peace with it.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I suppose for me, I don't know, I still don't really know that reason. I'd love to know why. Um, But
I would
I,
say probably after everything you have been through yourself, that you were the best person to mother a child that was going to be in the same position. You
yeah, yeah, and I suppose I like my partner now. He came into our lives when my eldest was just turned 7,
know.
and he hadn't heard of a stoma, and he didn't know what one it was before he met me, and then for him to kind of have a baby himself with one and love him. He's the only one in the house without one now, so he's outnumbered. And my eldest is like, why isn't he getting one? And I'm like, well, it's not something you can go on Amazon and order, it's not, so if anything, he's the odd one out in this household because the three of us have a stoma, and it's like, oh, it's weird you don't have one, oh, not changing your bag tonight after your shower, that's weird. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's hard, isn't it, for anyone that's been through the surgery. And I mean, it's scary and it's not normal, but for
Mhm.
me in my life it is, because
Yeah.
I'm surrounded by it. It's constant. And me
Mhm.
at 35, my eldest is end of primary school, and then the baby, and we're all at different points of our lives, and we've all got them, and it's different at different stages of your life, and it means something different, doesn't it? And it's the way you manage it and the way you emotionally cope with it. So yeah, it's for me, if anything, I think it's quite an honor to be able to watch my eldest in particular deal with it the way he does. He's incredible
Mhm.
with it. And I just think that if more people realize that it's not just older people that have stomas, there are thousands of babies with them, thousands of young children with them who cope with this every day. It's incredible. Sorry.
The older generation, we kind of just they shy away from it, and they didn't share it. And I think whether it was shame or embarrassment, or they didn't know how to deal with it, or share it publicly, times have very much changed. And I know that you advocate a lot on your social media, to raise awareness, and offer support for people out there with it, because in your position, you were that child with a stoma. You have two young sons with stomas, and you want to make life easy for them. You want to show them that they can lead a normal life, that they are normal, even though they live life with an ostomy. So, like, you're doing absolutely amazing. I think it's fabulous. Um,
No.
it's as a parent of two children, I don't know how I would have coped if I was in your shoes, but you're doing absolutely fabulous. Rachel, let's talk a little bit about Hirschsprung's being hereditary. Did you ever think, if I go on to have children, is that something that is possible? Or, you know, even whenever you found out you were pregnant, did you know then already that your son had Hirschsprung's before he was born? Or
So when my parents had me, they were given in one of the discharge letters that, if the baby decides when they're older that they want children, there's a 1 in 10 chance that her children would have it. So when, you fall in love and you meet your partner and the one you're going to have kids with, and
Mhm.
I had that figure in my head, 1 in 10. And then when my eldest was born, I think because that figure was in our head, and 10%, I suppose it's not a low number, but it also seems like, 1 in 10, it'll be fine. I
Mhm.
think it was always a niggly thing in the back of my head, like, oh, if it happens, but it'll be okay, it'll be fine, we'll deal with it. Um, and then when it did happen, we had like DNA tested and all that, and it turned out that it was 1 in 2, not 1 in 10. So the information that was given when I was born in 1989, well, I don't want to say it was incorrect, because at the time that's the information they had.
Yeah.
But roll on 26 years, when I had my first child,
Mhm.
that was not what the data was showing, and that's not the result that was given. So
Mhm.
yeah, when I went on then to have my youngest, we had genetic testing. So I didn't have it for my first, but for the second, I thought, right, having well, you'll know, going from one child to two is such a massive adjustment
Mhm.
for everyone's lives, including my already eldest child.
Mhm.
I wanted to be empowered with that knowledge. I wanted to know. So we were offered genetic testing. And for anyone that's in this position where they've got a condition that can be genetically passed down, I know from speaking to a lot of people, it's not offered to you really. Like, unless you're talking about it or your consultant led and they mention it, it's not something they want to give out willingly because it costs, doesn't it? And it's an expensive process. But I knew it had been mentioned before, so I made sure that I advocated for myself and I said, right, I want to have genetic testing. I want to know who I need to talk to. And we started the ball rolling then. But luckily, my both kids have the same surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
So he was very supportive, incredibly so. And he advocated for us as well when I was being pushed back a bit by the prenatal care I was getting. And they were fighting my corner basically and saying, no, this mother needs to know because preparations need to be made. Because when a baby is born with Hirschsprungs at the severity that I have it, and then already my one child did,
Mm-hmm.
your baby needs to go straight to neonatal intensive care. You don't have cuddles. That the baby was, I had C-section, so the baby was born. My partner Luke had him on his chest for a couple of minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I was shown the baby and he was put straight in an incubator and taken away. So that's the severity of the situation. It's, and all that obviously needs to be planned because there needs to be a bed space for that baby.
Yeah.
So we had to fight so ridiculously hard to make sure that that baby was born where the care would be, because where we reside and where I had to have the baby via C-section wasn't where the specialist care was for a baby with Hirschsprungs. So we had to fight to get them to grant me to have the baby in the same hospital where the care was for the baby, so that when they were born, they wouldn't have to be put through being transported in an ambulance and the trauma that would be, well, more specifically emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't have been able to go with the baby. I'd have been left in the one hospital. We'd have been separated. So yeah, there's so much to consider when things like this happen, and you need a plan because as a new mum or second time mum, your emotions and your hormones, as you know, are not your own. It
Mm-hmm.
is hard enough. I'd imagine when you have a baby that's not poorly, I wouldn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we had to fight, but we made sure that we did everything physically possible to make sure that the baby was born in the environment where the care was right there. And but that took a lot of fighting. And I'm not going to sugarcoat that because I think it's important people realize that when you are pregnant and your baby can possibly have a genetic condition that requires medical attention, that you need to fight tooth and nail to get that care, to get to where you need to be. And we're all a number, let's be honest. And as much as people can be really kind and nice to you in appointments, ultimately there's another God knows how many behind you waiting. So you need to fight and make yourself known and heard.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, that's when things go bad. And things didn't go to plan with my eldest sometimes because things weren't done properly. And I just told myself this time, I will not take no for an answer. I don't like confrontation. I'm not a confrontational person,
Mm-hmm.
but unfortunately, I had to be a bit for this situation because your child's life is at stake, isn't it? And yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So you said there your eldest son, am I correct? You said at 18 months had his reversed.
Yeah, but that failed. It didn't
Okay.
work. Which is another misconception, unfortunately, that not all reversals go to plan.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I see a lot of posts of people saying they're going to get a reversal and how excited they are and that they really want it. And it always makes me have goosebumps because I think, oh my God, I hope to God it goes well for them
Yeah.
because I know firsthand what happens when it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not really spoken about either, is it?
Do
And
you think is that just in people with Hirschsprungs or is that people with just
anyone
in relation?
anyone with a stoma, because I think the thing is we're all of us with a stoma, even if we have the same condition, no one's body is the same, is it?
Mm-hmm.
The surgeries we've had, the scar tissue that's there, the other potentially underlying conditions that we don't know about yet. I mean, God, I feel like I've had enough, but we
Yeah.
all know that doesn't mean anything. Um, yeah, so it didn't go to plan. He's still got his now. Um, but hopefully when he's older, he's been given the opportunity to again, but now he's older, he's decided no, and that's his choice, it's his body, and he's not a baby anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And when he's ready and he wants to, he can. But as for the baby, he's 7 months old now, and surgery will hopefully happen around Christmas, the New Year. And, everything in me is like, yeah, be positive, it'll be okay. But that PTSD from the first child that I've I've never had counselling or therapy for, to be fair, never been offered it. If I had the money, I would have had it privately, but you know what it's like, life gets in the way and bills need to be paid.
Yeah.
Um, there's that devil on my shoulder going, oh, but this happened, oh, but so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's going to be a hard one. But he deserves, like everyone does, a chance to not have one.
Yeah.
And you can't take that away from someone. And if, as his parents, we need to make sure that he has that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, if someone said to me, "Do you want a reversal?" I'd be like, "Absolutely not. Go away. Leave me alone." No, I want this for life. And it sounds ridiculous because I don't want this for life. I don't want any of this.
Nobody does.
But compared to, like, a lot of us, compared to what we were like pre-stoma,
Mm-hmm.
no, I'll take the stoma, thanks.
Yeah.
I do. I'll have it now because it is better than what I had. So yeah.
Exactly. So what's it like? What's it like, your daily life? You're just not dealing with yourself with a stoma, you're dealing with two kids with a stoma. I personally procrastinate on when I have to do a bag change. What is that like as a mum, daily? Are you doing a bag change every day for yourself? Or are you doing a bag change every day for the boys? Is it
Yeah.
all of the
I
time?
How often do you change your bag? Like, is it every day, or are you one of these can stretch it out for days? Oh,
I'm one of those.
yeah. So I've never been able to do that. Having an ileostomy and high output and all that jazz, that's never been possible for me. There's been one or two occasions where I've literally fallen asleep when I was supposed to change it, and I've woken up and gone, oh my God. Oh, it hasn't leaked. Okay. Oh, but then you take it off and you realize, oh, that was close. Oh, that's why I don't leave it past the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I'm in a routine now, and yeah, the kids just that they have their bags changed after their bath or shower every day, and then when the kids are asleep, I'll have my bath or shower and change mine.
Mhm.
I do not plan doing it unless they are both asleep because I don't want that stress or that anxiety of having to hurry
Mhm.
or think, oh my God, am I trying to get my bag on and a baby's crying and an 8-year-old's wanting something or
Yeah.
whatever. But as we all know, stomas don't really they don't go to plan, do they, a lot? And it doesn't matter if you've got the best behaving stoma in the world and the best products in the world. Is there anyone that said they've never had a leak? I don't know. I don't know anyone that hasn't.
Yeah.
And it happens, doesn't it? I mean, I think the lowest point for me was, I think we finally got the baby home. And when you've had a C-section and you're postpartum and your whole body's just done that whole pleh thing. Like it's all, I don't know how, yeah, it's all just coming out of everywhere, shall I say? Trying not to be too graphic.
Yeah.
Sorry, you cut this out if you want.
No.
Um, so
Yeah.
just have that mental image.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and the baby's bag had leaked because in the first few months, it takes you a while to find the right bag for them. So as an adult, it takes a while, doesn't it? There's not many people that go home and stick with the bag that you find when
Yeah.
you wake up from surgery. So if you think about it with a baby, they can't tell you if it's itchy. They can't tell you if it's not comfortable or it's not sitting right. You've just got babies cry for so many reasons. And in those first few months, it is so hard trying to distinguish, are they crying because they're hungry, their nappy needs doing, is it their bag, is their skin itchy, has it leaked, is it the start of a leak? It's a minefield, and you've just got to try. I mean, one cue that the baby does, which my eldest has always done, is they pull on their bags as if to say, get it off me,
Mm.
which is that feeling we get, isn't it? When you've got that dreaded itch, you're like, oh, I just need to just get it off. And so that's kind of the main cue. But when you're a newborn, you're not ripping your bag off of you, you're just
Yeah.
lying there crying. But yeah, the baby's bag had leaked everywhere. I had him on the changing table. My bag had decided to leak, and I quickly grabbed like a wet sheet, put it on the carpet, and I had to change his bag with my bag just leaking and poo going down me everywhere. And I just thought, this is a new low. This is something I haven't experienced before.
Yeah.
And what do? You don't look after yourself first, do you? Because the baby has no chance of
Oh,
doing anything for themselves. So you just sort the baby out. And I mean, my partner works from home. He is incredible support. He is amazing. But if I called him every time something like that happened, he wouldn't have a job. He'd be sacked. So when he's got his headphones in and he's doing a meeting, unless it's absolutely dire and there's no way around it, and I'll like frantically scream.
mm,
Yeah, you've just got to get on with it, haven't you? So yeah, there's been a few moments of that. I think it's just routine and planning in those bag changes and doing it once a day. It might be that we could stretch it to 2 days possibly now and then, but I know all our peristomal skin suffers for it,
mhm,
leaving it more than a day.
yeah,
And I know if we change it the times we do every day, we more than often don't have leaks. So I feel more that sense of I'm in control of this situation. We shouldn't, I can't have three of us in the house having leaks every day.
yeah,
For one, how many bags would I be ordering a month?
mhm,
I mean, if I was ordering enough for a backup and a buffer every month, that's potentially up to like 90 bags per person.
yeah,
I can't be having 270 bags delivered to my house every day with all the other paraphernalia that it comes with.
mhm,
So you've got to be smart about it, haven't you? You've got to
yeah,
try and plan it and get your routine down. And yeah, it's hard,
yeah.
but like I said, it's our normal. So
Okay.
I wouldn't know what it's like any other way.
From a point of view of sending your son, so your older son is at school, how does he manage it at school? Does he get help in school if he needs to do a bag change? Do you
Yeah.
send him to school with all the supplies? What does that look like for him?
So again, unfortunately, just because your child has something like a stoma, it doesn't mean you're automatically going to get support for them in school. You have to apply with the local council. So I live in Wales, so I can't talk for anywhere else. But again, I had to fight 18 months with the local council to get him statemented so that he could have teaching assistant hours in the classroom, because you can't expect a teacher that's got 30 kids to be stoma trained so that if a bag leaks, they just desert 29 kids and look after your kid. That's not practically possible. And I would never expect that. I was a teacher myself, so I do sympathize with them there. But at the same time, I can't expect my child he started primary school at nursery class. So he was 3, rising 3. And yeah, I had to go in every time he needed a bag empty, every time it leaked. I had to be on standby, close by, whilst I was fighting for absolute months and months and months, 18 months to get actual proper structured TA support, which is absolutely ridiculous, as we all know. But unfortunately, that's the system and that's how it works. So I couldn't return to work. I was a secondary school teacher.
Mhm.
So I had a career, I'd gone to uni, I was going up the pay progression, things were looking good. And then I couldn't return to work. I tried for 6 weeks when he was born and he was too poorly in hospital. I tried to go back to work when he joined nursery class in primary school. I couldn't again because you've brought them into the world. It is your responsibility.
Yeah.
And I had to play the system and wait for them to grant me
Mhm.
this support. Um, which the support is there, the pots of money are there, but it's getting that the process, it's just so ridiculously long as with everything.
Yeah.
Um, and
Is
I'm
it
grateful that,
probably is it a process where you really need to be planning that 3 years before your child's going to school, or
well, that's the thing. I mean, I had never had a child with a stoma before, so I never would have thought that when they practically come, when they're 1 year old, I'm having to apply to a council for TA support. You would never think to do that, and no one would ever tell you that.
Yes.
When I mean, think, when you're looking at primary schools to send your children, you go and visit a few, don't you? And you
Mhm.
ask through word of mouth if they're any good. And the amount of schools that I visited that told me, oh no, we can't cater for your son. Oh no, we haven't, no, we couldn't support him. And that is horrible to hear, that
Mhm.
they haven't even met your child and
Yeah.
they're already not giving him a chance at having an education, making friends, because they just can't cope with it. And schools are so underfunded, aren't they? They're struggling just like everyone else. So again, I understand all that, but as a parent, there's no helpline that helps you with this. Who do you go
Mhm.
to get help and ask? Citizens advice, they're very generic in their support. Oh, ring your council. Okay. You ring your council, you're passed on to 10 million different people, then it's fill out this form. So emotionally, it's really difficult process to go through, because you never get answers straight away. It's all waiting, hoping that people pick up your email instead of the hundreds of us they have.
Mhm.
And that 18 months felt like a lifetime.
I'm sure.
And your house still carries on, you've still got bills to pay, and you're not bringing in any money.
Hmm.
Um, and there is DLA, but it's never enough.
Yeah.
And even then, I mean, with payments for disabilities with children, currently in Wales is a 22-week waiting list. So, I mean, that's yeah, I don't even need to say how ridiculous that is, do I? And that's how, I mean, I think your stoma nurse, she supported us in doing an application. Um, and we were fortunate enough to have, saved some money and been able to allow for me to be off for longer, because we knew the baby was going to be ill.
Yeah.
But what if you didn't have that in place? What if you didn't know your child was going to be poorly?
Yeah.
And what if you were relying on that benefit payment for having a sick child, but you're having to wait 22 weeks?
Yeah.
I mean, again, like you just said, so you can't preempt it and apply to the council and say, oh, look, it takes 22 weeks, so can I apply before they come out? Well,
Yeah.
no, they're not going to do that, are they?
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just so many barriers. I think the way we describe it is, you just feel like you're constantly fighting fires.
Hmm.
Um, you sort out one issue, another one comes up, and it's relentless.
Hmm.
And you just have to keep going.
Okay.
And that's
So
all you can.
now, so now you've had your second baby. You're going through the motion again. You're in a better place now, would you say?
Yeah, I think it's not as scary this time.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't have a partner before that was supportive and understanding and sympathetic of the situation, which was obviously a massive
Mhm.
impact on my mental health as a new mum.
Yeah.
Um, and I think this time it's definitely different with who I'm with now. And the main thing I would say is just make sure you've got good people around you, people that raise you up, people that support you, people that want to sympathize. I mean, it makes such a difference. I mean, the when you're a team and fighting these fires, it's so much easier
Yeah.
than when you are alone doing that. Um, and I'd like to think that, unfortunately, I think I'm guessing it's the same with every parent. Like, you learn lessons on your first, so that when you have your second, you think, oh, yeah, I know how to do that. Or, everything comes quicker, doesn't it? Because you've done it already. And because I have a stoma as well, I mean, with the baby, I mean, it's just autopilot now. It's just boom, boom,
Mhm.
boom, boom, boom. With my first, when we first brought him home, I would have been in a mad panic and it would have been awful. But it's just practice and time. As with an adult with a stoma, isn't it? When you first change your bag, how horrendous is that
Mm.
compared to years down the line, when I think a lot of people underestimate how far they've come when you're changing your bag without thinking about what you're doing anymore.
Yeah.
Like, if you ever caught yourself where you're you're changing your bag, but you're not actually thinking about doing it and what you're doing because it's so automatic.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, we've already been at that stage for a few months now, which is nice.
Yeah, but that doesn't get away from the wriggling little baby that you have on a mat, and you're
Yeah.
trying to change his
No.
bag.
And the thing for me that freaks me out the most is he tries to grab it with his whole hand. So imagine, because he's got a little baby hand and he's got a little baby stoma, and he's literally like, imagine that's the stoma, and he's like trying to fizz it. And I'm like, oh, because like part of me's like, don't rip it off. He can't rip it off. But when you see his little hand grasp like a claw, you're like, oh my God, no. Like, just panic sets in. And when we're both there, one of us is like, oh my God, no, please stop. Like, oh God, you just think one day he's going to rip that off somehow.
Yeah.
And because it must be so weird to, I mean, I don't know, we can't feel our stomas, can we? There's no
No.
nerve endings, but he knows there's something there because he's
Yeah,
trying to grab it. So,
of course he does. Yeah.
I can't imagine what it must feel like as a baby to have a stoma and keep on having these two humans that keep you alive, sticking some bag on your stomach every day. I bet I'd love to know what goes through his head.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, you're doing an absolutely fabulous job. Just let's talk a little bit about you. Recently, have you ran a marathon? Are you contemplating running a marathon?
Oh, yeah,
How do
no,
you
we
fit that
we
in?
ran the Cardiff half marathon last weekend. Um, yeah, I used to run,
Hmm.
used to be a runner. I ran the Cardiff half last year, 4 months pregnant. And
Wow.
up until that point, I was regularly running all the time. And then after that, I got really dehydrated doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wouldn't have done it if I wasn't already a runner that far into pregnancy, but I was told it was safe and it was fine.
Hmm.
But it was a step too far. And I stopped running then because it scared me a bit. And then since having another baby and all that comes with all that, I just haven't had as much time to train. When you have two kids, it's just not possible, is it? Oh, I'm just going to go for a run. Oh, okay. Like it's just not that practical with school runs, clubs, babies, like a house to try and keep going and not fall down, and pets and God knows what. So, but the kids are supported by Noah's Ark Children's Charity in Cardiff, and we are ambassadors, myself and my partner. So we wanted to run it for them to raise money like I did last year.
Hmm.
So we weren't going to not do it. We were not doing it for a time. And a few people were saying to us, that's a ridiculous excuse to have time for a date. And I was like, well, actually, I think it's very clever because we took so long doing it. We had 4 hours of child-free time. So
I love it.
there's a hint for parents out there. If you can't get a babysitter, just say you're doing a half marathon and pick a lovely charity to raise money for, and you got 4 hours child free and you're doing a good deed.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah,
Well,
no, it was really good though. It was good.
yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. Well done. I know that's fabulous. The opportunity to raise money for a charity that's, supporting your kids as well is just absolutely amazing. Well done. Rachel, if there was one piece of information or a little golden nugget you could leave with our audience today, maybe there's a mum out there listening who has Hirschsprungs or, knows she's going to have a child with Hirschsprungs or the possibility of it. What piece of advice could you give? Some amazing stuff. If there's one little golden nugget that you could leave our audience with today, what would it be?
I think you've got to be prepared to fight constantly.
Mhm.
Like as horrible as it is and it feels, you're gonna have to keep fighting for things all the time. Like I would have thought by now that for my eldest, I wouldn't have had to do that for stuff, but I still am.
Mhm.
And you've got to dig deep and you've got to keep going. And I think you just work towards getting to the point of accepting that that is the way it's got to be,
Mhm.
which I know doesn't sound very positive and fluffy, and I'm sorry for that, but I just think you need to be realistic and you need to dig deep and think, you can't shy away from this. It's fight or flight.
Mhm.
You can't hide away from this when there are kids concerned. They need you to
Mhm.
be an advocate because they can't do it for themselves.
Mhm.
And yeah, you've just got to keep going. You've got to dig deep, and yeah, you've got to keep fighting. You've got to keep going. And if you feel like you can't, to reach out for support, and do not do it alone. And that's the main reason why, that is the reason why I started my Instagram account, and why I do so much like this, and is because there's nothing worse than feeling alone in all this. It's horrible. Like I was saying to Tom, who does the Hirschsprung's podcast that we were speaking about earlier,
Mhm.
like he's my age with Hirschsprung's, and our mums at the same time would have had babies with a stoma, and they wouldn't have known anyone. They
Yeah.
would have been so, I can't imagine how scary that would have been.
Mhm.
And we're in a society now where we're privileged to be able to connect with people quickly, that we can relate to, and that we can lean on, and just connect with people. And if you're struggling with something, ask them about it and reach out. If someone, if the worst they can do is not reply,
That's
and
right.
then you haven't lost anything.
Mhm.
And when you come into trouble where you need to fight for things and fight councils and fight God knows what, those connections can
Mhm.
empower you with the knowledge and the motivation to keep going.
That's right.
And it's really important to do that.
That was part of the reason how this podcast has come about, because it was hearing the power behind other people's stories that gave me hope, and I was accepting of my journey and how life was going to be basically with the stoma for me. You can either view it one way, as it's going to be life is over, or it's going to give you your life back. And
Yeah.
then it was hearing and connecting with people on social media that definitely stood by me. And I think, I said time and time again, the community, the Boyle community that we have of connecting and linking in with each other is so powerful. And everyone has your back. Everyone wants you to have a better life, and they want to help you with things. Every question, everyone's DMs are open, for you to drop a question over. And the majority, 99.9% of people will come back to you and reply to you, and help you with the answers. And if they can't get an answer for you, they'll find someone who can. But obviously, if it's a health question, we're not professionals, and we'll always say go and seek
No.
medical advice. But yeah, Rachel, it's been fabulous hearing your journey of you and the two boys. And I'm delighted that you have a very supportive partner there to help you along, your family support and network there. So amazing. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep turning up on your social media. I know I am definitely inspired every time I see you pop on and you share something there. So your handle will be shared in the show notes here below. So it is gutsy.mum on Instagram. And guys, go give her a like and a follow. And if you've got any questions in relation to what we've chatted about today, do pop her over a message. She is a busy mum, but I'm sure she will get back to you.
Yeah, I
Um,
will reply eventually. I
will
promise.
reply. Yeah. So, Rachel, honestly, thank you 100%. It's been an absolute pleasure listening to your story today. So, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.